Have you ever wondered what happens when the law itself becomes the criminal? A city where even the police are bought, and those who speak the truth are silenced. But one man is done staying quiet. He isn't with the law, nor against it. He's just here to deliver justice. But the real story is yet to unfold. You won't want to miss this. Before we move forward, dear listeners, please subscribe my channel to hit 1,000 figure. The world wasn't always like this. There was a time when law and order meant something, when justice wasn't just a word politicians threw around in speeches. But that time was long gone. Now, the streets belonged to the criminals. Gangs ran neighborhoods. Corrupt officials lined their pockets. The innocent suffered. And the people who were supposed to protect them? They looked the other way. Clint Eastwood had seen it all. For years he had served as a lawman, a sheriff, a soldier, a man who stood for something. But those days were behind him. The badge didn't mean a damn thing anymore. Not when the ones wearing it were just as dirty as the criminals. He had tried to walk away, to leave the fight behind. He spent his nights in a quiet, run-down bar at the edge of town, drinking his whiskey slow, pretending he didn't hear the news, didn't see the fear in people's eyes. But then they went too far. They took the only thing he had left. It started with a name in the news, a good man, an old friend, killed in a back alley like his life meant nothing. The police called it a robbery. Clint knew better. This wasn't random. This was a message. Someone out there thought they could do whatever they wanted. They thought no one would come for them. They were wrong. Clint set his glass down. His hands didn't shake. His eyes didn't waver. He had tried to forget the man he used to be, but tonight that man was coming back. And this time, he wasn't playing by the rules. The city had changed. The faces were different, the buildings taller, but the rot was the same. Crime ruled these streets, and the law was just another business deal. Clint Eastwood stepped out of the dimly lit bar, his boots scraping against the cracked pavement. He lit a cigarette and took a slow drag, staring at the neon signs flickering across the street. The old sheriff in him wanted to believe the system still worked, that if he just called the right people, did the right thing, justice would come. But justice was dead. His old friend, Jack Slater, had been a good man, one of the few honest cops left in this city. And now he was gone. Shot twice in the chest, left bleeding in an alley like trash. The department wrote it off as a mugging. But Clint knew a professional hit when he saw one. Someone wanted Jack dead. Someone thought no one would come looking. They were wrong. Clint walked to his truck, the same beat-up Chevy he had driven for years. He opened the glove compartment and pulled out a worn leather holster. Inside was his old Colt .45, steel, cold, and loaded. He ran his fingers over the handle, the weight of it familiar. It had been years since he last carried it, since he last needed it. But tonight, he was taking it back. Clint didn't believe in coincidences. Jack wasn't killed at random. There was a reason, and that reason had a name. He spent the next few hours digging, using the old connections that hadn't turned their backs on him. A bartender, a mechanic, an ex-con who owed him a favor. The streets always talked. You just had to know how to listen. And they told Clint exactly what he needed to know. Vincent Morelli, a mob enforcer, ruthless, connected, the kind of man who handled problems the dirty way. Jack had been investigating Morelli for months. Maybe he got too close. Maybe he found something he shouldn't have. Either way, Morelli made sure he wouldn't find anything else. Clint took a deep breath. exhaling smoke into the cold night air. "All right, Vincent, let's talk." Morelli's club was a fortress, blacked-out windows, armed guards, expensive cars lined up outside. A place for the untouchables. Clint parked across the street and watched. 6 men at the entrance, all carrying more inside. He wasn't walking through that front door, not if he wanted to make it out alive. But Clint had never been a man who played by their rules. He found his way through the side alley, past the dumpsters and loading docks. A back entrance, unguarded. Big mistake. Inside, the music was loud, bass shaking the walls. Men in suits drank top-shelf liquor, laughing like they owned the world. They thought they were safe. Clint moved fast, one guard down, then another. No gunfire, no noise, just quick, brutal efficiency. By the time he reached Morelli's office, there was no one left to stop him. He kicked the door open. Morelli sat behind a massive desk, a cigar in his hand, his eyes widening in shock. "What the hell?" Clint grabbed him by the collar and yanked him forward, slamming his head into the desk. The cigar rolled to the floor. "Jack Slater." Clint's voice was calm, cold. "You ordered the hit." Morelli groaned, blood dripping from his nose. "I don't know what you're talking about." Clint pulled out his revolver and pressed it against Morelli's forehead. "Then let me remind you." The room went silent. The cold steel of Clint's revolver pressed against Vincent Morelli's forehead. The mobster, once so smug and untouchable, now sat frozen in his leather chair, sweat dripping down his face. Outside, the bass-heavy music thumped through the walls. Inside, it was silent. Clint's voice was steady, unshaken by time or fear. "Jack Slater, you ordered the hit. I want a name." Morelli swallowed hard, his hands trembling. "Listen, old man." Clint pulled the hammer back. Morelli flinched. His cocky grin vanished. He had faced threats before, but this was different. Clint wasn't bluffing. The veteran had seen men like Morelli all his life. Thugs in expensive suits, cowards hiding behind their power. They always talked big, right until the moment someone with nothing to lose walked in. And Clint had nothing to lose. Morelli exhaled sharply, his voice cracking. All right. It wasn't my call." Clint didn't blink. "Then whose was it?" Morelli hesitated. A mistake. In one swift motion, Clint grabbed Morelli's hand, slammed it onto the desk, and drove the barrel of his revolver into the mobster's fingers. Last chance. Morelli gasped in pain, his tough guy act completely shattered. It was Rourke, Detective James Rourke. He runs the department. Jack found out he was working with us. I had no choice. Clint let the words settle. A dirty cop. The real power behind the crime in this city. He let go of Morelli's hand and took a step back. The mobster exhaled in relief. Too soon. Before he could react, Clint swung his revolver like a hammer, cracking Morelli's skull. The man slumped over his desk, unconscious. Clint holstered his gun and turned toward the door. He had what he needed. Now, it was time to finish this. The city was asleep, but Clint Eastwood wasn't. He drove through the empty streets, his grip firm on the wheel. The name James Rourke echoed in his mind. A high-ranking detective, protected by the system, controlling crime from the inside. A man who thought he was untouchable. But Clint wasn't here to follow the law. He was here to end it. Rourke's house was a fortress, gated driveway, security cameras, private guards, the kind of protection only a corrupt man could afford. But Clint didn't need an invitation. He moved like a shadow, slipping past the guards, cutting the power, disabling the cameras. By the time he reached the back door, he could already hear Rourke on the phone. "What do you mean Morelli's out?" If Eastwood's alive, we have a problem. Clint stepped inside. Gun raised, eyes locked. You're damn right you have a problem. Rourke spun, reaching for his weapon, too slow. Clint fired a warning shot, shattering a whiskey glass inches from Rourke's hand. The detective froze. His face went pale. He knew this wasn't a negotiation. You sold out your own men, Clint growled. You killed Slater. You let the scum run this city. Rourke forced a smirk. And what are you going to do about it, old man? Kill me? You won't make it out alive. Clint's face didn't change. I don't plan on making it out. One shot. Right between the eyes. Rourke collapsed. The man who thought he was above justice, now just another body in the dirt. Clint stepped outside. The sirens were coming. The city would call this murder, but he knew the truth. This wasn't murder. This was justice. He lit a cigarette, took a slow drag, and disappeared into the night. The system was broken. But tonight, it felt just a little less corrupt. And as long as Clint Eastwood was breathing, justice wasn't done yet.